Failure is an inevitable part of life. The fear of failure and the desire to avoid it can make attempting something new seem daunting, and if you allow that feeling to flourish, you will inevitably paralyze yourself, unable to take action. After all, you can't fail if you never try in the first place. That is unquestionably a self-defeating attitude, and not one I recommend holding. This line of thinking only leads to stagnation of the self, preventing you from growing or changing in any meaningful way. Overcoming failure is a skill worth cultivating, because even small successes will generally come after some measure of failure. Pushing through failure is a huge aspect of playing a game like Elden Ring. As a prime example, take this fight with Margit the Fell Omen. Margit is typically the first major skill check a new player will encounter, as the suggested path leads you toward Stormvale Castle. In order to get into the castle, though, you first have to pass its gate guardian. Margit was quite the challenging boss when Elden Ring first came out, since no one really knew what they were doing yet, and the internet was abuzz with the game's apparent difficulty. Even though this is rather early in the game, this type of skill check is often where a player will decide whether the game is for them or not. It took me 7 attempts on my very first playthrough to defeat Margit, and that was with using Spirit Ashes. Naturally, every failed attempt was rather frustrating in the moment, but each one also taught me new aspects of the fight, the boss's moveset, appropriate dodging, and punishment windows. When I eventually won, the thrill of victory vastly overpowered my vexation, and that feeling stuck with me far longer than the memories of my failures. Fast forward to my next playthrough with a new character, and I beat Margit on the first try with no summons or Spirit Ashes. The failures of my first playthrough were necessary lessons that helped me make this once powerful foe a breeze. Funnily enough, here in this playthrough now, you're seeing that it took me 2 attempts to beat Margit, so not my best work. This is honestly quite funny because these days I don't expect to have to fight most bosses more than once. However, it was a valuable lesson in never getting too complacent, and it was a good reminder that even when you're skilled at something, you can still encounter failure. The most important thing you can do is persevere. This is a lesson worth applying broadly throughout life. Take the gym, for example. A few months ago, I hit a new deadlift PR of 523 pounds. A couple weeks ago, I couldn't even budge 495 off the ground. Naturally, failing a weight that I've done before felt pretty devastating in the moment. However, that failure led me to an important realization. I wasn't actually having fun with powerlifting anymore, and hadn't been for a while. It wasn't that I didn't want to keep lifting, I just needed a change of pace, both in the gym and outside of it. The biggest problem I was having outside the gym was that I hadn't written much throughout January to April. Writing is as necessary to my mental well-being as the gym is to my physical well-being, and doing the latter without making time for the former was making me miserable. When I would sit down to write, I'd be distracted by whatever was at hand, and then I'd get down a tiny amount of words in which I had really no confidence. I'd write nothing for a few days, then repeat this cycle. The fear of failing at writing a good story was crippling my ability to move forward, but I also felt like a failure for not writing. I was caught in a very self-defeating loop. And this is where I realistically had 2 options. I could either quit on my book, or I could allow myself the necessary time to redevelop the habit of writing. I chose the latter. I accepted that progress would be slow at the start, that my words wouldn't always be quality, but rededicating myself to this process was the only way to defeat this fear of failure. Now, as of recording this video, I have written about 13,000 words in the past month, which is more than double what I accomplished in January through April combined. I'm feeling really good both about my workouts and the writing process right now. Sometimes I'm slower than I want to be. Sometimes my word choice is not as polished as I want. Sometimes I'm not sure how I want a scene to unfold. None of these issues are bad, nor are they a sign of failure. I won't know that my book has failed or succeeded until I have finished writing it. But even if it turns out poorly as a comprehensive product, This is just the first draft, and the failures of the first draft are opportunities for growth in subsequent revisions. Always remember, you are allowed to fail on your first attempt, your second, your third, however many it takes to finally achieve victory. So if you've ever fought a boss in Elden Ring that made you want to quit, just remember, you only need to win once. Thank you so much for stopping by. As always, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you here in the next video.